World 3 is where I would say the shackles are completely off in Super Mario Galaxy 2. Mind you, the shackles were pretty loose in the first two worlds as well, but in World 3, the game starts to really open up. This is of course if you're walking through it in a linear stage-by-stage basis and trying to get every single star along your way. During World 3, that's when a few challenges will pop up that'll make you lose more lives than you expected. You'll be introduced to Luigi being a secondary playable character, and that's when the comets start to appear. If you are adamant about going back and revisiting all of the old stages to complete all the comets as they appear, World 3 will take you the longest to get through, because by the end of it, you'll for the most part be all caught up. And since that's the way I played this game, we have a lot to talk about in this video. Starting us off with a fairly simple stage, we get into Cloudy Court Galaxy with the objective of Head in the Clouds. This is something I'd like to delve deeper later onto this retrospective, maybe during a segment that isn't so beefy, but the skyboxes in this game are actually gorgeous. Even if many of them will not give you the nighttime theme, from the overworld down to the stages, they give you something good to look at. There are a few exceptions here and there, but a lot of times I enter a stage and I'm kinda taken aback by how good it looks. I will caveat that by admitting that these moments are a lot more likely when you're playing through Super Mario Galaxy 1, but as I've gone through in a previous segment, I think shrugging them off entirely is a bit disingenuous. For example, I think this stage specifically does the whole segmented planetoid to planetoid linear objective pretty well. The focus is obviously on Cloud Mario, and the gravity gimmick isn't quite there, but this for me would make a very acceptable small galaxy in the first game. Given that you have the cloud power up, it's pretty easy to jump your way across the opening area. This is more just to get you warmed up than anything else. Eventually, you'll have to utilize a combination of fans and drum sets of all things to get yourself onto the next section, but they add some fun to it by actually having you collect clouds on your way up the drum sets in order to make your way all the way up to the symbols. At this point, you'll notice the Hungry Luma, and if you collected 30 coins along your way there, which is what I did, you can take a quick break to do the hidden star. In this case, it's a pretty inoffensive collection of the silver stars while hopping from cloud to cloud. The only real danger here are the Goombas, because if you get hit, you'll lose the cloud power up, which means you'll fall into the toxic waste below. And obviously, that's not including the cosmic clones that'll be chasing you throughout all of this. But as long as you stay on your toes, this will be a pretty easy star to grab. So let's move back to the primary star. If you move past that Hungry Luma, there will be a fan that's blowing upwards. You're meant to create a cloud platform right on top of it so that it can blow you upwards. Along the way, you'll have to kind of weave yourself in between these blocks that could slow you down and make you fall back to the bottom, before going through a few more similar challenges until you make it to the 2D segment. This is a lot of fun, which actually brings me to my next tangent. Mario Galaxy 2 very well might be some of the most enjoyable 2D Mario gameplay I've ever done. Galaxy 1 was fun, don't get me wrong. It did a good job implementing various gimmicks to make the various 2D sections more exciting, mostly the gravity gimmick and the different power-ups. Over here it's the same thing, but it's a lot more fleshed out, which is the general theme for Galaxy 2 versus Galaxy 1 from a gameplay perspective. Through most of this 2D challenge, you'll be utilizing the clouds and the fans and various wall jumps to make your way across and upwards. The floaty nature of Mario's jump makes it so that you can be pretty adventurous in your attempts, but it also means you have to be cognizant to not waste all of your clouds and keep track of the restocking power-ups. At one point, the stage almost unexpectedly closes in on you, and it's on you to figure that out as fast as you can and grab the Comet Medal. And finally, your last test is to make it upwards through a fan that's blowing you towards these hazardous plants as you make your way to the star. Next up is a fun new gimmick, Tall Trunk Galaxy's The Floatacious Blimp Fruit. This one has a fun woods aesthetic and requires you to use Yoshi as well as the Blimp Fruit to make your way upwards. The thing is with these blimps is that they run on an air meter, so you have to be quick about making sure you can make it to the next platform so you can grab the next Blimp Fruit and make your way up even more. Naturally, it starts you off pretty easily before taking you to yet another 2D section. This section puts you on another one of those cylindrical planetoids. So now, the player gets to creatively go between using the Blimp Fruit and the gravity to make their way across the platforms and get across to the other side. Along your way, you'll have to pick up the Comet Fruit as well as the 5 different pieces of the launch star. Due to the placement of these launch stars and where the platforms are and where the Blimp Fruit is, it could actually be a little bit of a challenge to grab at least 1 or 2 of them. Not to mention, if you lose one of the plants, you'll lose Yoshi, and that means he'll just keep spinning around into oblivion until you can grab another one. You won't lose a life, but it'll take a few attempts. And finally, the last section is a little bit of a spiral. It'll mess with your perception, but basically you're going to be using the Blimp Fruit, again, to make your way around this circular path, dodging the various plants, dodging the Goombas, and grabbing more Blimp Fruits until you get to the star. And then, Luigi. So, similar to Galaxy 1, Luigi has slightly different physics. But in contrast to Mario Galaxy 1, instead of going on these little scavenger hunts to find him throughout the various different stages and then being able to play with him after you beat the game, he instead will randomly appear at the start of some of the levels you go through and just give you an optional sense of variety so you can choose to shake things up a bit if it's feeling dull. I think this is a really good way to implement it. There's a bit of a risk and reward factor here in that he can move a lot better, but he slides everywhere he goes. And by better, I mean the higher jumps and the quicker movement. I don't think the difference is as noticeable as in Galaxy 1, and I swear, I don't know if I'm making this up in my mind, but I think Mario is less floaty and quicker in this game. Either that or the stages are just designed in a way that it doesn't feel as slow and floaty as the last game did. Whatever the case is, when I grab Luigi, it doesn't feel that much different to play in this case because the difficulty feels the same across the two characters. It feels more like an alternative than an additional challenge. I'll leave it up to the experts that know more about this game than I do in the comments to let us know if there is actually a difference in the physics. Naturally, when you jump right back into Tall Trunk Galaxy, you see Luigi, but you don't even really get to use him in a regular level yet, because this small galaxy not only had the blimp fruit in the first gimmick, but it's got the slide in the second one. I love the camera angle for this. They throw it right over your shoulders so that you can get the feel for the speed that you're moving. The music in the background just hits that nostalgia spot so well. The cylindrical nature of these slides so that it doesn't feel exactly like the slides from Mario 64, but it feels like a proper tribute in a game with a gravity gimmick. You'll have to obviously dodge various enemies and hazards along your path, make sure you're on the right side of the tube where you get to the points where you have to jump across to the next segment. And actually, that's how I lost a few lives. And every time you lose, you gotta start from the top of the slide. This is a classic challenge. None of those unnecessary checkpoints, you're here to be tested. And if you pass that test, you will be rewarded with your star. And as soon as you make your way back towards the face ship, you will be notified of a prankster comet. I want to save a more in-depth discussion on the prankster comets for a future segment, but I will be discussing them as I go through the game, and offering little bits of my opinion, similar to how I've approached the hidden stars and Hungry Lumas, for example. But in this case, we're back to Cloudy Court Galaxy with a star titled The Shadow Lining. So you're back at the galaxy, but it's a completely different stage. And what I mean by that is it's not a rehash of the stage by any means. There are all of these floating platforms that will build as you run across them, all the while you're being chased by the cosmic clones, and you have to grab the pieces of the launch star. The first area is easy enough, but on the second area, it gets to a 2D segment, and they immediately throw you into a wall jumping section where the left wall is being constructed as you move your way up. After that, it's pretty easy. Take a long jump, get to the launch star, and it'll take you to your star. I wouldn't say this is a groundbreaking comet by any means, but it's more like a fun little sidebar to collect an extra star. But I do like that despite being in the same original stage, it is its own unique challenge. At this point, the comets will start to rain down on you. Almost every star you collect will lead to another comet star from a previous level appearing. So now we go all the way back to Yoshi Star Galaxy. Pick up a star, you got 1 minute to run through and destroy as many of these spinies as you can. Well, technically, there's only 30 of them. You should be able to hit it in under a minute. I think I had it with 9 seconds to go. But similar to the previous one, although it is in the same galaxy, it's more like its own bite-sized challenge for an additional star. And when that's done, we get another comet in Spin Dig Galaxy. This one is a Daredevil comet, more typical of what we saw in Mario Galaxy 1. You fight the boss and you gotta do it in a single hit. These felt like padding in Mario Galaxy 1, and they feel more like padding here as well. But compared to the other types of prankster comets that also felt like padding in Galaxy 1, these were probably my favorites of those. And that's primarily because it's actually pretty easy to take a hit on these things, and it psychologically changes the way that you approach the level, so it actually does feel different. And with that, it's straight to Puzzle Plank Galaxy in World 2. Purple Coin Shadow Vault. Rather than every stage having a purple coin challenge like they did in the first game, they just swung in the purple comets with the other types of comets and spread them around throughout the stages. This feels like another early prankster comet. You're basically just going to be running around grabbing the coins as you can, while avoiding the cosmic clones that are on your tail. You're given 60 seconds, I only needed about 40. Very easy. After that, it's back all the way to the beginning where Sky Station Galaxy is. PB Piranha's Speedrun. So I like the speedruns a lot more how they're implemented in this game versus in the previous one. And credit to them, some of them can actually be a little bit more difficult than you expect. In this case, instead of having a set time that is way too long, as you make your way across the level, you actually have to go out of your way to grab all of the stopwatches. Every time you grab one, it'll add more time to the clock. This puts a lot of power in the player's hand because if they're trying to go faster than the game allows them to, they can take shortcuts, skip different parts of the stages, and make the challenge as daring as they'd like. Mind you, by the end of this, you also still have to defeat Pee Wee Piranha, and he's going to have about 3 stopwatches around him while you take on the fight. Believe it or not, I lost. I was surprised. A speedy comet that I actually struggled in? Amazing. And while it's not always the case during the various different types of comet challenges, when you lose in this one, you gotta go all the way back to the beginning. Which made me just have to take different types of shortcuts and figure out how to traverse faster. Because if you're somebody playing a platformer, a properly designed platformer I might add, you're always looking for different ways to increase your efficiency. That's how I play platformers anyway. I'm always trying to go fast. I'm trying to either see what I can skip or how I can utilize Mario's moveset to make it to places I'm not supposed to be in. And that makes these speedy comets a lot of fun here. This is the first stage. I did not expect to go through a speedy comet on the first stage and lose as many lives as I did. But keep in mind, this is not actually the first stage, because now we've played through about 2 or 3 worlds before coming back to this challenge. It's part of the linear progression of the game to implement these challenges as you get better. And what they do really well in this game, as opposed to one that I will try not to throw too much shade on, is they actually slide up that difficulty setting on some of these prankster comets based off of how far along in the game you are, not where they're located. Which makes you look forward to a lot more of these prankster comets, even if there are going to be quite a few that just feel like either padding or an easy waste of time. But in fairness, that happened in the first game too. In any case, we move on to Boulder Bowl Galaxy. The Rolling Crabber Romp. You got a minute to grab Rock Mario and just roll around this planetoid and kill as many of these things as you can. It seems easy, but as they get fewer in numbers, you are going to have to kind of stop rolling and walk towards the ones you gotta defeat. I finished with about 12 seconds, this one was pretty easy. Next up is Flip Swap Galaxy, Purple Coin, Flip and Sprint. This one's fun. Flip Swap Galaxy was already a pretty fun stage to go through, but this time with the 3-minute timer as well as grabbing the purple coins along your way, it's a lot more exciting. Previously when I played the stage, I thought it was a lot more fun to just try to fly through it as fast as you can. But you have to strike a balance between taking it slow to make sure you grab every single one of the purple coins, while at the same time not going too slow to be cognizant of the ticking clock. All the usual stuff applies, of course. You gotta watch out for the electric gates, you gotta watch out for the rolling chomps. But really, the criticism I have here is I feel like the timer is just a little bit too long, but I guess the challenge is more in actually getting through the stage while grabbing all the purple coins in this case. If anything, the timer kinda feels more like a formality. You'll make your way back up to Tall Trunk Galaxy for their comet now, and oh boy, if you liked that slide the first time, let's do it again. This time, grab all the purple coins. In fairness, you're given about 140, but you only need 100 of them. But there are a few moments where it is actually impossible to grab coins on both sides of a tube, so it's not quite as generous as you think. The first time I finished, I had 97 coins. In addition to that, this is very similar to Flip Swap Galaxy, in which the actual challenge itself, despite the collection of the coins, is still a fun, exhilarating challenge, even if you've done it before. The second time I got through the slide, I had 1 hit remaining and got only 89 purple coins. Mind you, this time you also have the option to go for Luigi, but I figured I did one with Luigi already, let me try it with Mario this time. Third time around I succeeded, and obviously it's because in the first 2 tries, I learned a lot of the patterns as I failed, which is just the type of personal growth that I love in video games. Next up, we're moving back to Hightail Fall Galaxy in World 2. It's another speedrun. It's that same Yoshi challenge, except now you're apparently going through an asteroid belt or something because there's a bunch of rocks falling towards a level that you kind of have to avoid. Although, you can kind of get through most of the stage without worrying about them. So you gotta do a pretty decent job in the last segment to make sure you're not repeating a few of the areas. Although, I still had about half the time remaining when I got to the end and I never made a single mistake, so they're pretty lenient. We can probably classify this one as padding, depending on how good you are with Yoshi. But on the bright side, we get to go to a new galaxy, Haunty Hall's Galaxy. Okay, so Mario 64's Boo's Haunted Mansion was good. Mario Sunshine's Serena Beach was awesome. Mario Galaxy's Ghostly Galaxy was good. Haunty Hall's Galaxy is spectacular. I sometimes forget that Mario Kart 8 actually came out a really long time ago, and it was much closer to the release of Super Mario Galaxy 2. I think it was about 4 years between the 2 titles. So while a track like Twisted Mansion might feel modern because it was on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Haunty Hall's Galaxy reminded me a lot of that track, and that's because that track was likely based to an extent off of Haunty Hall's Galaxy. Honestly, this one just does a really good job all around. We'll start off with a Glimmer of Bulberry. These are Yoshi fruits that will light up the path as you traverse along a stage. But at first you start off on this quick narrow little path where you just gotta avoid a few ghosts blocking your way. But the next area is pretty cool. It's a narrow tunnel, but the stage is frequently scrolling to one side of the stage and coming out of the other. And likewise with the enemies. Kind of like that classic Mario Bros game where you run off from the side of the screen and just pop up on the other end. But it's got that whole dark, dimensional, haunted wallpaper to it. I think aesthetically it looks really cool, and the patterns on the floor itself are nice to look at, while also important to follow along, because as you run up this segment, you are going to have to be very careful about when you make jumps across different platforms and when you have to run around to the other side. If you like risky long jumps, this is pretty fun. You'll go through 3 or 4 different segments like this, and eventually you'll make it towards the end. But before taking the pipe maze, you're going to quickly want to run around the platform to grab your comet medal. After that, it's the Glimmer Fruit. This whole segment is very similar to the implementation of the Dark Matter in Galaxy 1. I won't necessarily say that I prefer one over the other, but I will say that the added challenge here is that you gotta move quickly because the fruit will fade as you run through the stage. There will be various question mark blocks and coins that will help hint you in towards the right direction, and as long as you're careful, you'll be able to collect your star. After that, you can jump right back in for the second star, sneaking down the creepy corridor. I opted to use Luigi for this one because it's a haunted theme, and those are Luigi stages, let's be real. So as you run through the beginning segment, there will be a bunch of boos that'll start chasing you from behind. The more you continue along, the more boos will follow you. If you look at them, they stop. You know the drill. When you get past those first 2 challenges, the second portion of it is running through these long, narrow pathways, while these dark matter eating or creating are taking the stage apart as you run. At the very end, there's a few more of those sliding platforms while you're being chased by ghosts, but it should be pretty quick and easy to get to the star. And after that, you can move on to Freezy Flake Galaxy, Bowser on Ice. Right off the bat, you get to grab yourself a fire flower and head back to the area down below and just start knocking things over with fireballs. Mainly all of these snow sculptures. Funny enough, even the trees are snow sculptures. I don't know why, but I think this is the only stage I remembered pretty vividly from playing this game back when it first came out. Specifically this open area where you shoot the fireballs everywhere. Something about it stuck out to me, and I have a feeling it's because of the location of the hidden star. But for now, you're just knocking down the Bowser statue and taking another slide to the next area. It's a less exciting slide in this case, more of a stage transition than anything else. At the end of it, there's a stack of these frozen blocks that you gotta use the fire flower to just destroy the right one so that you can get to the pipe maze. And finally, in the last segment, you have to manipulate these snowballs by pushing them across the lava, creating a pathway for you to walk across, making it all the way to the fire flower, and then burning down the Bowser statue so you can collect your star. Easy peasy. I kinda like the fire and ice combo for the stage. But this is not the main Fire and Ice stage. For now, we can backtrack a bit to Haunty Hall's Galaxy. There's a prankster comet, Spooky Cosmic Clones Chase. You're redoing this segment of the last star again, but this time there are cosmic clones that are chasing behind you. It's harder than you think it would be, but not as hard as it should be. We'll call it borderline padding. Come to think of it, I think the stage is not as spectacular as I was making it out to be. Like, I'd still take Serena Beach over this one, but that's partially because there's more than one haunted themed galaxy in this game. And since there are fewer stars per galaxy in this game, I kind of just mashed them all together into one stage in my mind. But we'll get to those other ones soon. For now, it's back to Freezy Flake. Sorbetti's Chilly Reception. You grab Rock Mario and make your way back down, and you have to find all the hidden pieces of the launch star. You do this by breaking down more and more of these sculptures, except when you break one down, you'll find the pipe maze. I think this was the hidden star that I had remembered from my younger playthrough. The chimp is back and he has a new challenge. 500 points here. This is actually pretty fun because it uses the skating mechanic. You gotta be quick on your feet, and you gotta know when to dodge, and you gotta make sure you hit the right golden pieces. I got on the first try, but considering the hidden star here was actually finding the location of the chimp, in addition to the skating challenge, which was fun to go through, I think it's a decent hidden star. Obviously, we can jump right back in and continue the mission. I opted to go through Luigi this time just to change it up a bit. For the most part, this whole area could be summarized as rolling into whatever you can in order to find all the starships. Once that's all taken care of, you can take the launch star to the next segment, which puts you in the heart of a blizzard. It's kind of a maze that you'll have to blindly run through until you find a way out, but if you run around long enough, you'll find your way to the launch star and you'll be able to take it towards the boss battle. You're fighting against Sorbetti. He's going to try rolling over you, and you have to make sure you spin attack him on the nose. I think there's an on the nose pun that I could make for this fight, but it might be a little on the nose. Moving on. Actually, I did have to go back into the stage because not only did I need a single star bit in order to feed the Hungry Luma, I needed to find the Comet Medal. It was right under these blocks. And when I fed the Hungry Luma, it unlocked Beat Block Galaxy, Step to the Beep. This is just a lot of fun. It's your typical rhythm-based challenge. The cool thing is, not only do the platforms transform, but also the enemies that are on there, they just kind of disappear and reappear. And it could actually get a little bit difficult at the very end to collect all the stars without falling off. Those being the 5 silver stars. All in all, it makes for a pretty decent small galaxy. And when I got that star, I actually got a challenge from Wild Glide Galaxy. Jibber Jay is offering me a chance at a race, he's telling me don't chicken out, and my mama taught me not to be a chicken. So I'm flying straight there. Basically, the same thing you did last time, except now you're racing against somebody else. The fact that you actually do have to force yourself to move a little bit quicker through it does offer additional challenge that wasn't there before, and honestly until the very end of the race I was not in first, so while I did manage to beat it in the first try, it was still a fun challenge. But in general, you guys know that I love me a good motion control test. And on that note, Rolling Masterpiece Galaxy Silver Chomp Grudge Match. You know the drill, jump on the ball, tilt your Wii remote in the right direction to make sure the ball moves in the direction you want it to go. The further you tilt it, the faster you'll move. It starts off with a fairly simple challenge. You can't really lose a life, so eventually you will get to where you need to go. But right after that, you have to switch all of these platforms from yellow to blue without falling off. Get through this wooded area where the buzzsaws are cutting the platform along your way. And then finally, it's a game of bumper balls. Only this time, somebody actually loses and it doesn't end in a draw. After it's taken care of, you get to pick up your star. The Comet is a little bit harder though. The Masterpiece Speed Run. Do it all again, but in 2 minutes. This is yet another one of those things where it seems already challenging enough to go through this as it is, but then when you add the timer, it starts messing with you. And you guys have played with the Wii Remote, you know how it goes. Once you start getting flustered and you start moving around a little bit too much, it just gets more and more difficult. You start failing in spots that you didn't fail the first time, and then just start trying to move quicker than you need to move, and that causes you to lose another life. I had to repeat this so much that by the end of it, I was struggling to pick up the key that I had picked up very easily the first time around. And just the more I played, the harder it got for some reason. I think I was getting in my own head, but it wasn't just mental, it was also physical because it's a stupid Wii Remote. I'm not kidding, I had to actually put the controller down and step away for a few minutes to come back to this one. I don't think I had done that since one of the secret area challenges in Mario Sunshine. But this is funny because, again, 2 minutes ago I had beat it in one try without even being bothered, and I probably did it in less than 2 minutes. But now, every part of the stage became an actual challenge. At one point I even made it to the Chomp to fight him, and he still ran out of time. I can't be bothered to count how many times I failed on this one, but it did take me 20 minutes to get the star, and it might actually be one of the longer stars I've gotten so far. But with that obnoxiousness out of the way, you make it to the Bowser Jr. Galaxy, which of course I'll be covering later with all of the Bowser Galaxies in a different segment. But for the most part, if you consider all of the detours that I took through World 3, it made World 3 one of the beefiest worlds to actually get through. I think this whole segment was about 2.5 hours of real-world playtime for me, which is probably one of the longer ones, if not the longest. After that, it gets a little bit more straightforward because you do all the comets. I kinda gave you guys a feel for what the comets are gonna be like, but just expect them to get more and more difficult as you go along. And I want to break them down a little bit at the end of the game to figure out how many of them actually feel like they're decent challenges and how many of them feel like they're redundant. Some of them might feel redundant and be a challenge, but that's a different story. I do kind of like that I am approaching these comets as I go through them instead of leaving them for the end, because I feel like the retelling of my Galaxy 1 experience wasn't as fun because I had to save all of the small galaxies for the end of the retrospective, and the small galaxies, similar to a lot of these one-off challenges in this game, are some of the most enjoyable ones in the game. But I think that's enough for now. World 3 might actually be one of the better advertisements for this game, and that's including all of the returns to the earlier game to complete the Comet Stars or the challenges. Don't get me wrong, there will be better galaxies coming up in the next few segments too, but I think if you're going through this linearly, collecting everything you can along your path, when you get to star number 30, the game completely takes off. And that happens right around the start of World 3. This for me was kind of the equivalent of when you hit Freeze Flame Galaxy in Galaxy 1 and the game just started to kind of take off. But the difference is, obviously, that I enjoyed more of the gameplay in Galaxy 2 more than in Galaxy 1, including all of the earlier stuff prior to these shackle removing moments. But with that out of the way, head through the dimensional portal and meet me at World 4.